Welcome, welcome, everyone, to the Can I Speak to Your Manager show. I am joined by Maty, Dale, and Laura from Two Feathers Medicine and Symmetry of Health. Welcome once again to the new teaching show. Laura, can I talk to your manager?
You're her manager, aren't you, Andrew?
Yeah.
Wait a second. No, technically I want to be her inner manager.
Yes,
How's it going with you, Laura, today?
Yeah, really good. I had great fun doing the revocation for this because I had no idea how extreme these Karens were. I think the USA must have more Karens than the UK. And
well, it has 380 million to your 60 million. So yeah, we have a lot more Karens. But you have British Karens who are very unique type of wildlife.
Okay. So I investigated the USA.
You cannot
Karens.
catch and release British Karens. Dale, how's it going with you today?
Yeah, good. I'm just a bit disappointed in the way you presented and opened the show, Andrew. I'm just not happy about it. I didn't feel like you spoke in the right way, and I want you to change for my way. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited I'm really excited to explore this Karen show today, and hello for everyone listening as well.
And Maty, how's it going with you today?
I'm really well today, and I'm looking forward into getting into some light-hearted, offensive topics
So
to remove some of the density.
If you are a Karen and easy offended, tough luck. We are going to be deep into some of the triggers, the things that makes the Karens want to talk to your manager. Now, the first thing I want to do is define a Karen. The other day I saw a Facebook post, "Hey, I'm from Europe and I don't know what a Karen is. Can you explain it to me?" And I posted a link to a When Karens Attack video on YouTube. And a few minutes later, the person went back, "What? What is this?" And I go, "It's generally a short-haired blonde girl who's extremely angry at the world and forever's trying to manipulate, manage, and control everything around her." Now, the short-haired Karen meme started from, I don't know, about 7 years ago, and that was a real person doing real things, but it has now turned into a meme where you put the short blonde hair on anybody and they're a Karen, okay? That was how Karens have started. The internet culture has now made exposed Karens to a whole different degree. So if you are not truly familiar with what a Karen is but have an idea, just go to your YouTube channel, go to YouTube and type in Karens. When Karens attack, Karen compilations, Karens arguing with the cops, Karens getting tased, Karens getting arrested. And there are millions of videos with millions upon millions of hits. Everybody knows a Karen. It's just when it's identified as that, you got to go, I know somebody just like that. So, Maty, what are Karens like for you in your country?
It's an interesting question because you've got your spiritual Karens, which I come across quite a lot. But then general Karens, there are a certain demographic of people, and I can't, because I don't want to come across as either racist or something else that's going to get us in trouble.
Just to say it's a cultural, yeah.
Yeah, there's a certain cultural type of people that seem to have it within them, and they just very much just look down upon everybody, and they seem to gravitate towards one another, and there's nothing you can do to appease a Karen. And woe betide you do anything that they don't agree with, because they will tell you straight away. There's none of that British stiff upper lip. It's just straight with the venom.
So describe a spiritual Karen.
A spiritual Karen is somebody who uses spirituality in order to berate and belittle everyone and everything around them, to use their spirituality and to use their belief systems in order to impress what they're not impressed with onto the world.
And to validate their demeaning nature.
Exactly, because they're better than everybody else, and their spirituality is more than anybody else's.
A Karen is an energy harvester. Okay? Dale, sorry. What does a Karen mean to you?
Guys.
Yes.
So for me, I'd say a Karen is one of those people where when they get going, it's like something possesses them and comes in them, and they just look straight crazy fucking eyes, and they just completely start screaming and shouting, and you just see like a temper tantrum within the person, like they're having a full meltdown. It's like a child having a meltdown, and like you say, you can see the energy harvesting going on. And I've met a few Karens who have come to my events in the past, not many, but a few, and they've like sent me a letter, an email after complaining about a few things. So for me, there's so many different Karens, but I'd say the regular Karen is the one who full on is in anger mode all the time, who doesn't love themselves. And it's like they're a robot. They're just in this society and they're in their own little bubble, and they go around. Something triggers them so quick. Like they'll just be out and some guy will look at them really weird in the line, or they won't agree with something, and they'll just go into this fighting mode. So I've seen quite a fair few Karens in my time, Andrew.
So what does complaining do for a Karen?
I'd say
fuels them.
Fuels them, yeah.
Okay. When they can't harvest from others, complaining means they can harvest their own energy, feed off themselves, vampirically feed on themselves, to feed the inner Karen. Okay. Laura, you wrote the Karen Revocation. What did you learn about writing the Karen Revocation?
How crazy they are. Seriously, I didn't, because to do the research I went through a lot of YouTube videos, and I had no idea they actually got that bad.
Did you laugh? Did you laugh at any of them?
Yes, I did laugh. I was amazed that somebody could actually work themselves up into such a frenzy.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the Karen videos you watched that you can repeat to others for them to go and watch? Funny ones, sad ones, whatever you can remember.
There are so many out there, and I wouldn't know individual ones, but there's stuff on aircraft, and the original ones seem to be where they won't wear their mask.
Yeah.
In public places.
Karens were before mask. They just went super crazy during masking times.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then children with children.
Yeah.
You know, they're just absolutely. You can't believe that they could actually behave like that. I was really quite shocked.
So there are many Karen videos out there, like Laura was just saying.
I have a favourite one.
What's your favorite one?
So there's one of an elderly lady, which is quite bad because of what happens to her in the end. She's a bit elderly. She's not one of these young Karens. But as I'm watching these women, and some of them are men, absolutely, but as I'm watching them be so oppressive and horrible to people, there's the dark part of me that's saying, I wish someone would just slap them round the face or something. And so I got into instant gratification of looking at Karen's actually getting something back in return.
Me too.
And I needed that. I needed to see that, you know. And there was one of a lady, and a cop's trying to pull her over. This is in America, and she does not want to be stopped. She's like, "You can't do this to me." And he ends up chasing her and then tasing her, and she's full on.
Pulls her out of the car, and then tases her. And she was 72 years old. I know the video.
That's the one. That's one of my favourites.
Okay.
Have you seen the one of the where they try and make some pizzas in a parking lot, or they're trying to make? They're in a car and they've got like a little stove, a cooker, and they're cooking. And this lady comes past and she keeps walking past, telling him to go. She's rang the cops. She walks up to the guy and kicks all of his pans. You know, he's cooking.
Yes, I have.
Throws them all in the air.
Yes.
Yep. Karen versus skateboarders is really fun because the skateboarders, they are just ruthless with their comebacks. And I mean cutting. They're not hurting her, but mentally the comebacks that are from these skateboarders are wonderful. Now I have another favorite one, and this is a Karen in a parking lot of like not a fast food store, like a fast grocery store. Like you get in, you get out real fast. And she's talking about the devil and Satan and stuff, and a cop comes up to her, and she turns around and goes, "Begone, Satan cop! Let the devil is in you." And he's like, "The devil's not in me." And he starts backing up as she goes closer and closer, and he puts his hand down like, oh, he's gonna tase her. And then she backs up and screams at him, and then she charges at him, "Rah, you will not get me, demon." And she's still screaming, "You're in demon level," while she's being tased.
Wow.
Now, is that technically a Karen? No. That's a straight up crazy woman. Okay?
Yeah.
Have you seen the one with the knife, Andrew, in the store?
Yes, I've seen the one with the knife in the store.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, another one is where white Karen in a grocery store talks to black Karen. Oh, no. Black Karen went, slapped this woman so hard, I swear to God, her false teeth came out. Okay? Okay? And she didn't know what to do, and everyone around started cheering for the black Karen. And then the one woman's husband came in, grabbed her, and took her out. Okay?
There's a Hispanic woman that does that as well to a Karen in a shop as well.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. That was really, really good. You don't know who you're talking to.
I think that lady with the knife, though, I don't think that was a Karen. I think that was just a full possession, wasn't it? Of a.
That was
she had a
both.
knife in a store, and the cops came, and she was there just holding it in the air, this sharp knife, and all of a sudden you see her get tased and thrown down. It's so good. She's there like holding it high, and they just go whoosh, and she's there like falls.
And they all do the Karen scream.
Yes.
That's the one, the Karen scream, when they just cannot get their way, and it's that pure rage that comes out at the top of their voice.
So let's talk about why do they want to speak to managers, especially in restaurants or any service thing. Laura, what do you think the motivation is when they go, I want to speak to your manager?
Well, they've got this very superior attitude, haven't they? So basically the checkout girl or whatever, the server will not do. They want to speak to the top dog.
Why?
Is what it is, isn't it?
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Because they see everybody else as beneath them, but because they've got this idea of perceived superiority.
Mm-hmm. And what will they do with that power?
Anything they can to get their own way.
Create fear. That I have power, that I can talk to your manager. I will get you fired from your peon peasant job.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a really good story which connects to this. So when I was in the restaurant industry a while ago, there was a lady, and she was so fucking rude. She was horrible, and she started making fun of the waitress, and I was the manager on shift at that time, and she kept saying rude remarks to the waitress, like it became bullying, and it was really, really nasty bullying to the lady who was working. And I turned around to her and I just said, "Can you get out?" And I've never said that to anyone in my life. I just asked her to leave, and she goes, "I know Adele, I know the owner. I'm going to send her a long email." Then all of a sudden, 2 days later, Adele had a meeting with me, and she goes, "I just want to say thank you for kicking her out because she is a dickhead and I hate her." And I was like, yes. I was like shitting myself, and she said thank you for doing it.
Laura, have you ever encountered somebody that wants to speak to the manager, like being out and about? Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
to
Are you reading something in the chat?
No, I said, have you ever run across a Karen in person and describe what you saw?
I don't know. I have. I must be the only person in the world who's not come across a Karen.
You have? You're just not triggered enough.
No.
You're just not triggered enough.
Yeah.
Maddie, any actual Karen stories you've personally witnessed?
The one that comes to mind I can't bring up. I have many times. I can't think. I haven't seen any. I've been holding out for them, but I haven't seen any that have been like the ones on the internet. And I've seen many scenarios where I'm like, "Oh, it's about to happen! It's about to happen!" Oh, and it doesn't happen. But no, I can't bring any to mind. Where there was one lady with me when I clipped her wing mirror with my car, and it was her and her daughter, and they went full on, bringing the phones out, filming everything, really just on me, and I ended up actually just speeding away, and yeah, just speeding away, not even exchanging details or anything, just gone.
Wonderful. All right,
Yes,
I have a Karen story. This was at the beginning of lockdown, maybe month number 2.5 of lockdown. You know, they're basically threatening the death penalty if you're not wearing a mask. Okay, so there's this mother with a baby pushing a cart and a stroller at the park. At a time we really weren't even supposed to be at the parks. They were like, you're going to get all the animals sick. They were super freaking out. But in Ohio, where I live, you're allowed to go to the parks. So mother pushing a stroller, and I'm maybe 100 yards away doing my thing, and I have my mask kind of up or down. I'm not really wearing it as I'm walking because I hate walking with a mask on. And I hear this screaming energy, and this woman just like emerged out of the trees and charged this woman with the stroller because the baby didn't have a mask on and she didn't have a mask on. And she started screaming and yelling. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I'm like, there's a mother with a stroller. And I'm like, kind of like huffed it over there a little bit to see if what was going on, if something really bad was going on. And this mother's like, get the heck away from my baby. Get away from me. And it gets to the point where this woman is screaming, you have to wear a mask. You're going to kill everyone in the world. And then a couple other people kind of like come together and they're like, we're all trying to figure out what's going on. And we all realizing that this woman's having a complete and total psychotic meltdown because, she wasn't wearing her mask, pushing her own baby in the middle of an open park. And then she starts looking at everyone else's because we had pulled our masks down. It's just an instinct. And that set her off. And then maybe a couple minutes later, because the lady with the stroller called the cops, and the cops, our parks all have their own our parks have their own built-in cops. They come in and they end up tasing her. They ended up tasing her down to the ground. And I'm like, whoa, that's an example of an extreme Karen.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen the Karen video where this elderly woman, maybe in her mid-70s, walking at a park, sees an Asian woman in tight jogger pants and doesn't like the shape of her body and starts spouting racist things at her, and then she maces her. She maced the Asian girl. Well, the Asian girl was lucky enough to catch a few pictures of her before she got maced and ended up arresting her, and she had done this to like 20 people. A serial macer of the people she doesn't like.
Wow.
That's assault. That's straight up assault.
That's assault, right?
Yeah. And there was a very famous one where a black gentleman was out in the woods. He was an ornithologist looking at the birds, and he does this all the time, looking at the birds. And the Karen comes along and she's asking him, who are you and what you're doing here, or something like that. And I think he asked her to put her dog onto a lead, and she really took offense about being asked to do something. And she ends up making a phone call and claiming that she's being attacked or approached by this man who's a threatening behavior. And he films the whole thing.
Yep.
She ended up losing her job.
Totally been blacklisted in society, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Calling the cops on a guy watching the bird who said, just put your dog on a leash because this is a leash-based park, and you're going to ruin that man's life for that. What the heck is going through your mind?
Because she felt that because he was a black man and she was a white woman, that they were going to believe everything that she was saying, and he deserved to be taken away.
Entitlement. There is the core of what makes the mechanics of a Karen. Entitlement. Let's round table about what entitlement means. Laura, as a woman, growing from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s to the 2000s into the 2023s, what do you see women growing in the different forms of entitlements they've had from the generations?
Yes, well, they've not had so many entitlements, and then as the decades have gone on, they've established more and more, haven't they, for themselves? And sometimes the balance goes too much the other way. So we've had the women's rights and the women's lib, which was all hijacked by the CIA anyway, to go very extreme. So it's almost like at times it's gone beyond the equality. I think I was saying this the other night on a show, about we seem to have forgotten it's divine masculine and divine feminine are equal. It's not that because we've had 2,000 years plus of patriarchy, we have to now overthrow males, is it? It's the fact that we just want to bring it back to being on
balanced,
equal par. And
Exactly.
I think what's happened is women have just forgotten this. They just seem to want to take it too far.
they're owed. Okay. Dale, what does the entitlement energy for a Karen mean to you, the mechanics of what makes them up?
I'd say they just feel really owed. Society owes them something, and they've got like a vengeance against society because they're pissed off. So they always want to lash out what's wrong with their world, with society itself. And talking about entitlement as well, it seemed to be obviously women had more rights throughout, say, 20 years, 10 years, and it's completely gone the polar opposite. Well, there'll be it's created a Karen, I think, a separate Karen for all these women rights, where they'll just completely go against the men, and they'll just be this exactly the same how it was 20 years ago. And you're seeing this, a lot of women coming together and hating men and going too far into women's rights, women's this, women should be doing this, and completely trying to push male out. Like this world, if we went into war, there was that. I don't watch Andrew Tate much, but when he talked about you need men for, obviously, if we did get attacked, you'd need women for if we did get attacked, as an equal right of having both sides. So it is mixed, I'd say, the entitlement of the Karen. I think it's for the individual. Most of them are just born dickheads, basically. Horrible people who need to learn responsibility, need to learn to forgive. And I think forgiveness is a big one in there, that all these Karens fucking don't forgive anyone. And they've just got all of this soup of this bitchy shit ready to fly off at any moment.
Maty, what does the entitlement energy of a Karen and its mechanics mean to you?
Well, I agree with everything that was just said. But if you take out the gender part of it, I think we have generations of people who've been brought up who believe that just because they live in a house, own a car, work a job, have raised children, that they are exempt from societal politeness and the kind of things that holds together a society to be decent to one another. And they feel that because they are of this certain demographic or this certain lifestyle, that therefore they are above the law, above common decency, and above everybody else that doesn't have the lifestyle that they've been privileged to have.
And I believe the majority of the Karens we see come from the perception of an upper crustal society looking down upon them. Like in the British society, you're from the East End, you're from the High Ritchie, and you're on the other side of the tracks. And every generation throughout time has had Karens, okay? In our time, we're just seeing a bigger variety of Karens. The genetic makeup of Karens has changed and changed and changed. And Karens have the opposite. They have Kens. Okay, opposite of a Karen is a Ken, and we see many Kens out there. And now in the age of cell phones with video cameras, capturing it and putting it on the internet, you can see that it is everywhere. And what you were saying about the cultural look down, I'm entitled because I come from this wealth, I come from this family. We have seen these generational arguments. A rich person won't let their son marry a poor girl. You're going to marry up and pollute the bloodline. We've heard this story over and over and over and over again. Now we get Karens who have no money and believe they should be entitled to all of it, the respect that comes with it, and that if you don't give them the instant respect right now, you feel their wrath. So in my view, some Karens have an aspect of the spirit of vengeance in them. Some of them more, but there is a vengeful spirit within them. Okay? Laura, let's talk about the vengeful spirit for a second. What does it mean to you?
Something that's gone into your parasympathetic, possibly from childhood, from trauma when you're younger, that gets buried for a while and then comes up in later life.
Mm-hmm. How do you get rid of it? What's your solution?
Well, first of all, you've got to recognise it's there, haven't you? You've got to recognise that you've got a program that comes up, that you get triggered. And this can come up in like a form of a jealousy, particularly, can't it? And then the low self-esteem, then the not feeling good enough, and then the wanting something that somebody else has, which goes back to the jealousy. So for me, I I haven't had vengefulness, but I've had the sort of the jealousy side of it, and I've had to work on myself with that, and that's all about self-esteem.
Yes. Okay. Dale, let's talk about the vengeful spirit and how it affects Karens, and how can one begin to heal it.
I'd say a lot of Karens aren't comfortable being in their own body, and they're so not used to being in their own body, because mostly when they're in the Karen mode, they're out the body. So I'd recommend for a Karen in a vengeance state is being able to come back into the body more, potentially doing some sort of body work, regular massage to de-stress them so they're not stressed out all the time. And also, going back to what I said before would be important with the vengeance, forgiving people. And that's a big thing. What Karens find it so hard. They just won't forgive people, and they'll grow up and they'll have all this vengeance in their childhood, and it'll just come out all into their adult life. So all life they've just been holding this charge and polarity, and it's just triggered them. Maybe they've been bullied at school. This is just an example. Or maybe they were the people doing the bullying, and it's just escalated over and over to a period of time where it becomes vengeance and hate. And they're so used to living in hate that they forget and they can't remember how to live in peace. They can't remember how to live in the body. So they just continue on in that cycle.
Okay. Maty, let's talk the same question to you. The spirit of vengeance inside Karens and how to heal it.
Well, I think one of the most important things is charge and polarity. It comes down to that they are filled with charge and filled with polarity. What comes to mind, and I can't remember the name of the particular piece, but in your 6-week course at the beginning, there's the part that talks about all faiths need room to grow. Which document is that, Andrew?
That is the Fifth World of Peace document. The
Fifth World of Peace. And I think that could very easily be transmuted and translated into this kind of scenario as well. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. You have to respect the fact that other people have their beliefs. Other people have their problems, their issues. Other people have their lives that they're living. And we need to see things from a much more neutral balance, and humility. Absolutely humility. Do something that makes you humble, or do something to bring some form of humility to your life.
Exactly. So we've got a couple questions from the chat room. One from Noah. Is this related to neo-feminism and clamping the masculine? Seems like it's often women fight back and guys are the other opposite, just accepting neglect as normal. There is an aspect of the neo-feminism movement creating it, but most Karens are created at birth, at a young age, while they're growing up. The traumas that make them vengeful, the cultural idiosyncrasies, example, a Spanish Karen is way different than a Japanese Karen. And a German Karen is going to be way different than a British Karen. But they all still want to speak to your manager. They all want to have Lord fear over you so that you are less than them. They all generally share some aspect of the spirit of vengeance, whether they admit it or not. So, no, it's not just that. Then we have another question from Xena9222. Are the mechanics of the Karen manifesting with unhealthy toxic entitlement due to the underlying mental illness or mental disorders? Regardless, they are responsible for the choices and vocalize. So, unhealthy energies creating mental illnesses. Yes. Now, what level is the mental illness? If any of the Karens in the videos that we described were in front of a therapist, they would probably be diagnosed with some type of mental disorder, probably bipolar, manic depressive, histrionic, because they lie and they believe their own lies, or they could create their own reality and forget the facts of the real reality. So yes, that is. But the majority of Karens who just triggered and have to speak to the manager right now, but the rest of the month they don't, it's just because, something was wrong with the salad. There were too much anchovies in it, or you didn't bring enough ketchup for me, and they're triggered and want to speak to the mayor and Lord Fear. That's not really a mental illness as much as it is just a Karen being a Karen. Yeah. At that moment, they're triggered for whatever reason that they must lord power over this moment and must feed in this moment. This can be a form of self-haunting or a fact they're just so influenced by external energies that trigger them to take their power back. Oftentimes, people who've had entities in and out of them, they use triggers to kick the entities out. And that's often why frequent Karens are triggered. And it may not be a physical one, it may be a self-created one inside them, making them feel insecure in the moment. You didn't bring me the ketchup right at the moment that I wanted to eat that French fry. Therefore, I'm going to get your ass fired from your job. That's vengeful. That's vengeful.
How close is this to narcissism, Andrew? Because there's aspects of both, aren't there? And both can be caused by trauma.
Sure.
Deep trauma, deep pain.
Are real, true, forever Karens narcissists? Yes. But they're not high-functioning narcissists. They're low-functioning narcissists. And now when you go Karens who have mental disorders, they're not really narcissists, as the mental disorder runs everything that they are.
And a lot of it is cultural, isn't it, Andrew? A lot of it is cultural.
50% is cultural.
I mean,
the rest is environmental traumas.
A story comes to mind because I couldn't really bring them to mind when you were saying it. And there was one where I saw a lady and she was getting onto a bus, and the bus driver, I don't know, there's issues like if you have a big note in the UK, they won't change it for you. You have to have the correct change or whatever. And when she realised that she wasn't going to get what she wanted, she actually said to him, "Look at the job that you have."
Yep.
And that was her thing, to say you're a bus driver. And we have a certain culture of people who have the caste system within their culture over here, and it seems to be that culturally the women of this particular culture have that kind of learned narcissist Karen behavior. Yeah,
that's a lash out. That's attempting to control the environment and use their cultural idiosyncrasies to demand and control the moment. And what did the bus driver do? Kick her off the bus?
Everyone just stayed silent. Everyone just stayed, and in typically British way, everyone just stood and watched. And she did her thing, and then off she went. And everybody shook their heads in disapproval. Did she get kicked off
the bus, though? Did she leave the bus?
She was standing outside of the bus on the street. Yeah.
Here we see this all the time. They know they have to have exact change or within $1 of it, okay? And then all the bus driver does is writes them a note that they can take to any of the bus stop dealers and they get their cash back, okay? So we've seen this, and then as soon as they go to attack the bus driver's been authorized by the bus people to basically say whatever they need to say to get that Karen off the bus, because they're holding up the traffic, which could mean 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes at the end of their route. So bus drivers, if you're out there, I give you commendations and laurels for having to deal with the people like that, and may you dish it out as much as they give it to you.
Do you imagine how many Karens what they dealt with during the, I won't say the name of it, but the time we just went into a few years back? Do you imagine the bus drivers with all the masks and everything?
Oh, it must have been awful.
Wow. Warfare.
It's funny because a lot of Karens were pro-mask, and a lot of other Karens were anti-mask. So the Q movement was something big that fueled a whole load of Karens. They had a club that they were involved in as well. Look, there's all these other Karens that know this truth that none of you know.
Mm-hmm. What was really funny to see a Q Karen versus a mask Karen. Oh, when those two would go at it. Oh, I'm like, yes, let's get ready to rumble. Okay? Because neither of them are going to let down. And how long before fisticuffs happen?
So what's this deep fear they're holding? Or they want to create fear, but they're also holding a deep fear inside themselves. Is that a they're not good enough fear that they've got, back to self-esteem again?
The fear can be a variety of things. The fear can be creating the need to control, which makes the fear go away. The superseding underlying issue, it's going to be different amongst each of the Karens, culturally, physically, trauma-wise. But ultimately, the fear is, no one respects me. No one likes me. I'm a self-demeaning person. I'm not good enough. And therefore, they create the lash-out energy.
where they have to demand respect because they don't get it naturally.
That's right. Or they do get it and have completely zero ability to recognize the respect. It's not the respect I expect. And if you're not giving me the respect I expect, you're disrespecting me. And once they're disrespected, that's the trigger to go vengeful. The allowance to break a moral code.
And it feels to me that, is it ancestral karmic as well, or this Karen stuff? Like, a lot of them have the mother who was like that, and they just grow and mold into one.
Mm-hmm. So in the chat room, Serena Scott, I live beside a Karen, and it's her real name. She has targeted me for over 10 years. With that being said, Laura, I think it's time that you read your Karen revocation just for Serena. And it'll be posted inside the description of the chat and the show, both on Rumble and on YouTube, where you'll be able to get your Karen revocation. So, Serena, worry not. We are bringing you Karen vaccination.
Okay.
All right, get your inner Karen going, Laura. Speak with authority and talk
Speak
to
the
everyone's
inner
manager.
Let's do this.
Yes, talk to everyone's manager.
Okay. Is my audio okay, Joel?
You're perfect.
Yeah. Good. Revocation of Karens. I, in this ever-present, non-refundable moment of now, connect to all of myself in non-hierarchical order for the purpose of standing my sovereign ground, aligning myself with Earth's natural energies of equal exchange, as I revoke all those Karens who sully our seen and unseen energy fields with their explosive, accusatory, exploitive energies demanding assumed superiority and immediate gratification. I reject all Karens who try to use their perceived identity to their advantage, to the disadvantage of those around them. All those Karens who try to force respect because they never earn it and make themselves a self-imagined victim of a self-imagined crime against them. This address is to all Karens, past, present and future, in all time streams, dimensions, galaxies and universes, across all social media, the internet, and in all queues, shops, supermarkets, coffee stops, cafes, school parent meetings, fuel stations, airports, receptions, gyms, playgrounds, on the sidelines of game pitches, parking lots, parks, and any public place at all where you have demonstrated you cannot behave in a universally respectful and harmonious manner of equal energy exchange. To you, I say this. I want to see your manager for the divine purpose of exposing all programs running through your parasympathetic that are co-creating this distortion in your frequency. I demand from you a full refund of all my energy you have harvested by attempting to include me in your unsovereign moments. I want my energy back. I will not be corralled to be your audience and witness to or recipient of your self-created drama. I reject all energies you transmit that try to involve me in your discooperation, and I reject any social media message, written or verbal, that contains narcissistic, passive aggressiveness, motivational empathy, grandiose, selfish demands, and covert and overt rage and racism. I erect a stop sign to your one-way traffic of self-entitled rhetoric. I am free-willed and sovereign, and I revoke your interference of my path with your controlling outcomes, threats, and freaky behaviour. You have no access to me in any dimension, time stream, or galaxy I exist on. You are forgetting that everything in the seen has an unseen aspect. We're on a karmic resolving planet, and your actions do not have the consequences you believe. Your impaired self-awareness has deluded you into warped thinking that your one-man band of destruction of peace will serve you, while your guides and guardians in the unseen are in despair, shaking their heads, wincing and cringing at every boundary you trespass, every desperate attempt to prove your point, be right, claim exemption, and battle axe your way to the front of the line with your perceived privilege. I too have rights. The right not to be a part of your unreasonable harassment and attention seeking. My right is earned through my diligence of daily practice and my rites of passage, living in alignment with natural organic co-creation. Through unconditional love, non-hierarchy, non-competition, I have the right to revoke and reject all your verbal and physical rampages, all your demands for special treatment and false allegations that treads on others' sovereign journey. I revoke all your nonsensical justification attempts. You're sinking in your own sea of destruction, and I will not be your life raft or your stepping stone to prove your loud name-calling, exaggerated righteousness. I wholly reject your exhausting assumptions of being targeted, of your false claims of feeling unsafe, as you invent scenarios, vent abuse, and spiral out of control. I counteract your shrieking frequency with a deeper, slower voice of reason and self-empowerment, and lower your volume to 0 minus infinity. This revocation is non-refundable, no money back, non-confrontational, peaceful, sacred neutral statement that we have a Karen crisis on planet Earth, and no amount of their self-humiliation seems to deter these Karens from continuing their crazy and at times dangerous disturbances using their victim-derived power. I hereby state I can no longer entangle with any Karens in any way, shape or form, and remove their access to the talking stick until they have integrated the common moral code of unity consciousness. I enter this into the Earth Akashic record for all sentient kind to know that the Karens have lost it completely. Aho.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Incredible.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Holy shit, that was good.
Hell yeah.
Holy Karen,
you
that
are
was good.
destroying Karens in every dimension, time stream, Galactic universe with those withering words.
Incredible.
Yes, wonderful. Laura, what was it like writing it for you?
It was fun, and it just took me back to, I think, Trent or Amanda's comment there just now in the chat saying, is it okay to laugh at Karens? You have to.
Have to. That's the
And
greatest.
that's what
That's
I
the
was
greatest
doing
gift.
in the yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to get the right balance of it being a revocation, but also the lightheartedness that's needed to deal with this.
And you got to do that.
Yeah.
You got to do that. Sometimes you just got to take the piss out of them, and you can do it in a sacred, neutral way.
And this seems to be the way that the public in general, when they come together, those that are in unity in that moment, that's the way that they express that and diffuse that situation, is everybody stands around looking at each other going, holy shit, and laughing.
Yes, and laughing internally. They all got their phones out thinking that they get the next $1 billion video.
Yeah.
Dale, what did you think of that Karen revocation? Let's take it apart a little bit. What did you think of some of those lines there?
I just thought it was great because it went into all the aspects and all the little triggers and kind of like switched it round to be able to kind of like bring it back. It felt like you were reclaiming all those moments you experienced to Karen and all those. It's kind of like purging of the Karen. It was incredible, Lauren. You've got an incredible skill at writing revocations. You really do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I see Annette in the chat room. I know a Karen. His name is Amir, and he is Persian. Unfortunately, that name Amir has associated with a lot of Karen energy. Next. That's just an unfortunate name was applied to many Karens in this generation. Maty, what did you think of that revocation?
I thought it was a masterpiece. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. You flipped the frequency on the whole thing. You exposed them to their own inadequacies and their own unseen world, and you did it with humour, but also with intellect. It was perfect.
Thank you, Maty. Thank you.
Yes. So people in the chat room, what did you think of the Karen revocation, and who would you use it on? Your personal Karen. So we're going to ask for people to put in some of their personal Karen stories or Ken stories, and share some of your stories, because there's wisdom within each one. So, Maty, let's talk a little bit different for a second. Let's talk about male Karens, Kens.
Sure.
What's the big difference between a male Karen and a female Karen?
Okay.
A Ken and a
Careful.
Karen.
I have to be careful what I say here, because I don't want to sound too judgmental.
It's okay.
So-
be judgmental.
Okay, right. Well,
For this
The
subject,
term-
you could be judgmental.
the term bitch made comes to mind if I'm going to be judgmental, okay? Bitch made. Because when I see these kind of characters, the masculine characters, they look like, and I think to myself, my God, I could flatten him so easily. That's what I'm just going to go straight into the polarity then, if we're going to be like that, because in the UK, and I know it's like this many other places, but in the UK, it's there's only so much you can have an argument until it escalates into actual physical violence. Somebody around is going to have enough of it, and they're going to do something about it. It's in our culture. And so when I see these male Karens, quite often they're not feminine men, but there is an element of femininity to them. Does that make sense?
Sure. Here in the States, there's the feminine and then the extremely masculine Kens.
The Trump supporter types.
Yes, but there's Democratic, there's the Biden supporter Kens too, who are just as bad.
And because over here, like men, we don't complain. At least we complain to each other in private, but we don't complain publicly. So when a man starts to publicly start to complain, as I said, it makes him look bitch made, to use visceral terms.
Okay. So anything else for wisdom about identifying a male Karen?
They like to use
Let's do like
violence.
species identification.
Especially
Henpecked at
road Kens
Yes.
and Chads are the best when they get out in
What
parking
are their
lots
mating
or-
habits? The mating habit of the male Karen.
Well, there's often quite often with the female Karens, I see a man standing in the background like, oh God, are we going to do this again? But often with male Karens, there's a female standing there.
Do it again. Yeah, do it more.
Tell him.
Go on, tell him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the impression they're henpecked at home.
Yes.
So, Dale, any insights on male Karens from your perspective?
The encounter I've seen of them is they're quick for violence. If they can't resolve it, it's right, I'm going to just throw a punch, or I can't even punch. I've seen the majority of 95% of these male Karens who try and punch look like they've never punched before.
Yeah.
And they go up and they're like slap and they miss him and fall over, and it's just like no. From what I've seen of it, is a lot of traffic, people getting out of cars, and the Chad will come out, and all of a sudden he'll beep at him. Because he beeped him, he has to go around, wind down the window and smack him. It's like, what? And there's a really good video which I'll have to share. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's a lady doing a video on Instagram, or she's got quite a few followers, and she's doing like a yoga video or something on this bench, and she's there, and there's this empty bench behind him, and this Ken. It's the funniest video ever, because this Ken is like a comedian. What he says to her, it's like they go back and forth for about 15 minutes on a live. And he's just sat there watching with his arms crossed while she's doing the video. And she turns over, she goes, "Can't you see? Hello, I'm filming," like that. And he goes, "I don't bloody care." He goes, "I sit here all the time." And they go back and forth while she's live to thousands of people. It's phenomenal. And I feel some of the men are very witty. They're really good at arguing and answering back. They've got a lot more wit. The majority of them I've seen.
That's
I'm not saying women don't have wit, but
that's a nightly Ken.
that's it. Yeah, it's like a comedian. It's so good.
Okay. Laura, any insights for male Karens known as Kens? Did you want to put out?
I just get the feeling with some of the ones I've seen that they're not able to have their full expression at home. And so when they go out, they really want to throw their weight around, and they really want to be seen and heard, because basically at home they're not.
Yep. They've got blue balls.
Yep, they got blue balls.
Yeah, they need to get some.
Here in the States, we have Trump Kens and Biden Kens. And then you just have the Kens, the motorcycle Ken, motorcycle club Ken, and then you've got the rich elitist Ken. So we have a variety of them. Oftentimes you'll see a Ken who will use aggressive body stances and move in on a person like they're going to attack them. So unlike Karens, they have this aggressive energy. And there are many, many videos where somebody says, take another step forward to me, I'm going to knock you the F out. And the Ken gets mad. And then you see, pop, down goes the Ken. Okay? Down goes the one punch, glass jaw Ken. Okay? And then you see the Ken that gets punched and can't believe they just got punched. And they pull out their cell phone and call the cops. They just got they just got popped.
It was a consequence, bastard.
It was a consequence, exactly. Okay, so there comes a point where the Kens are a paper tiger, and then you get the Kens who are not a paper tiger. You pop them, they're gonna pull a gun. Okay. Or you pop them, it's going to be a roll-around knockout fight, and they're not going to give up because the adrenaline's going to take over, and they're going to have like a blackout aggressive rage moment where they don't even remember what they've done.
Have you seen the video, Andrew, in the car where he shoots him? He beeps at him, and he goes past, and he loads out like 5 rounds at this car going past. That's yeah.
That's different. That's a psychopath doing that stuff.
Yeah, fair enough.
That level, that's a psychopath. Yeah. Now, another Ken type energy. How do I put this one? Here was a while ago. A guy went into a smoothie shop and was buying smoothies for him and some of his kids, and told the person, "I can't have peanuts for this, and my kids have a peanut allergy." Well, he apparently mistaked the actual flavors of what he was doing, and one of them had peanuts, and the kid had it, and the kid had to go to the hospital. He's fine. It was an extreme allergy, but he came back to that place and on video lost his shit. And when I mean lost his shit. He was aggressive, but did not actually physically attack anybody. But you could tell if any of them had given any aggressive energy and attacked him back, it would have been roll on, knockout, drag out. Well, these wonderful little millennials put it up on the internet. Now, this guy's a high-level bank manager at like J.P. Morgan or something like that, and he's jobless now, full-on jobless now, because he went to rant. Yes, the issue with the peanuts, but it was his fucking fault. His fault, not the people that made the drinks. But he had to blame them to get himself out of the guilt. Okay? And that's somebody who's normally not a Karen, that's not a Ken, but suddenly is when they have to face the responsibility of what they did. Okay? And that's what really tells apart a real person from a Ken. You accept your responsibility of what you did. If you can't accept the responsibility of what you did and instantly blame others for everything, you're a Ken. Or worse.
It's like an advert. Do you experience these problems?
Yes.
Then you are a Ken. It's like a questionnaire. Like you fill in at the end. Yes. You figure out what bracket you're in.
Exactly. What bracket of Ken you are. Exactly.
So you also have your racist Kens as well. People that wouldn't within their own communities wouldn't treat certain people this way, but yet if somebody is of certain race, certain color, then you see this aggressiveness coming out.
Laura, any advice on male Kens? How to deal with it as a woman?
Well, I'm afraid I have laughed, I think, before with this sort of situation, and where laughter can flip the frequency, but it usually, I think, would probably annoy them more or put them into more embarrassment, which would actually make them worse. So I was going to ask what this program is where you can't take on responsibility for your actions. Where does that stem from? Is that fear again?
Is that guilt overriding the normal consciousness? That's a good question. How is it? Why can't people take responsibility for their actions? And why do they blame others? We'll give that question to Maty.
Sorry, say that question again.
By why people can't take on the responsibility when they do wrong. Why Kens have to blame everything around them on somebody else. What's the nature of that? What creates that in people?
That's an interesting question because it applies to so much more of society than just this particular topic. I think it comes down to, a lot of times it comes down to stress of the life and humour. We have to learn an element of humour and the ability to laugh at ourselves and to see ourselves for what we truly are. And I think when people have this what's the word I'm looking for? Narrative thought. This way that they look at the narrative and they deal with the narrative, and there's this right and wrong and the things that are put on the news and so forth. I think that people just get into this state of seriousness and blame. And so when one blames other people and blames other things, then as soon as it's flipped back round again, that blame's put upon you, and then it's that internal aggression. And most people don't want to feel that because it's uncomfortable.
And there's that lack of self-love, isn't there, where the people doing it just don't have an ounce of self-love and self-care in them, and they don't give any time and a dedication to who they are, and they're always pissed off, always sad, always depressed, always angry, and there's no accountability for who they are as a person. They'll never be truthful because they don't want to see the truth because they're scared to look at themselves.
And we see this in the spiritual community, don't we, so much? We see this within the spiritual community.
They might be
Not only do we see it in the spiritual community, it's rampant as a sickness, not being able to take responsibility, which leads into spiritual laziness and all those other things that stop people from doing any form of discipline.
Exactly, because it's much easier to blame than it is to actually face yourself head on.
Mm-hmm. So how does guilt, shame, how does shame, blame, and guilt affect a Karen or a Ken?
It's a triggering factor.
Add more to that.
So it's a triggering factor that will trigger anger and violence. It will trigger these Karen and Ken responses because they physically cannot admit that they're in the wrong. And therefore, what they have to do is, if they are in the wrong, then whoever is pointing out that they're in the wrong, they have to belittle them. They have to create fear within them. They have to say, hang on, you can't do this to me. I'm going to step all over you. And that's the idea of asking for the manager. It's because, hang on a minute, I want to show you how insignificant you are because you have just given me a truth that I can't handle.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's another one for you. What about a person who always is saying something stupid, and then when they get pushback, oh, I was joking, over and over again, years and years in a row. Anything that they ever say wrong, they instantly go to, I was joking.
That's narcissism,
What's that?
Isn't it?
Narcissism, I'd say. I know, I've met a few people I've had to cut ties with like that. And they don't even speak to you when they actually have a conversation with you. There's no, hello, how are you? Like the courtesy, it's just all in the conversation straight away. And it's all about me. And even if you give them a bit of interest about conversation, they just don't want to fucking hear it. So I'd say that's narcissism, because that reminded me of a guy I cut out of my life twice now, and I've cut him out again because he's just, he's it's disgustingly narcissistic.
It's also internal programs, internal demons being triggered and activated.
But so the way that Karens and Kens will shame, blame, and guilt other people, is that something that's been done to them though as children? So this is something they're carrying within.
Is it a learned response, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
In most cases it is, but there are certain Karens and Ken who take so much pleasure inflicting shame, blame, guilt on others that it's not even about how it started. It's the fact that they get dopamine releases off of doing it to others. Bible thumpers who demand you only believe in the Bible and will shame and demean you if you don't believe in the Bibles are a great example of that.
Yeah. I've seen a perfectly reasonable man, a perfectly agreeable man, someone who I liked. As soon as I questioned the idea of Christianity and some of the facts that you can say, hang on, modern Christianity is based on this and this is where this came from, then his response was, well, then you are eternally damned, and stormed out. And that's extreme.
Yes. But you've challenged that person in such a way, but that happens to that particular gentleman all the time probably, and can't realize it. So are Karens and Kens eternally stubborn? Let's explore the stubborn energy.
Yeah, I mean, they don't let go and they don't give up easily, do they?
What are the negative side effects of being stubborn?
You are a limited point of view.
Am I breaking up?
No. We were processing that question.
They'll never listen to other people.
Yeah.
You're forced into a limited perspective, which stumps your growth as a human being and as a spiritual being.
Is stubbornness cultural?
Yes. There are quite a lot of stubborn cultures.
How does one break being stubborn?
Break the programs of what they've been programmed with. Deprogram the system. Defrag the computer.
You turn stubborn energy to stubborn energy.
It's an interesting question.
Oh, so you use the same energy?
You use the same energy to defeat it.
But
The
surely you
clocks are
get
turning.
nothing. I'm just trying to work through that one. Then surely nothing would happen on either side.
It's a very difficult thing. I'm trying to think, how would you get a stubborn person to be unstubborn? It's very difficult.
With stubbornness.
Come on, people in the chat, you can answer that as well. How would you do
They're
that?
stubborn.
Yeah.
You can answer, don't be stubborn.
Well, I like what Annette's been putting up. Mirror them. I do that a lot.
Okay. So mirroring works for a while until they start feeding off of the mirror. And then you've played into their game. Now, most stubborn people lose an intelligence factor for being stubborn. They get an ignorance factor that takes over, and they don't realize what people are doing back to them, just showing it to them. Yeah, let's look at it again. How does one break stubbornness? It's a powerful spiritual teaching for everyone out there. Courage. What's the difference between courage and stubborn? We got mathematical
To be stubborn. To be stubborn means you are staying within the realms of that which you're comfortable with, that which you believe, that which you know or that you perceive to be true and rigid, and to be courageous means that you're willing to step outside of that.
Anybody else have anything they want to add? The difference between courage and stubbornness?
Well, I think with courage you can change, can't you? You can change things. With stubbornness, it's just all one way. But it's a courage to actually change from being one way to a few ways.
You're willing to be wrong. You're willing to take the risks and fail. With courage, you're willing to get it wrong. But with stubbornness, you just do exactly what it is that you know is going to lead you to the same outcome.
It's also fear in stubbornness, isn't there? There's a fear of
Yes.
stepping out into the unknown.
What's the difference between committed and commitment versus stubborn? Committed to the practice, but stubbornly denies the practice. What's the big difference between committed and commitment energy versus stubbornness?
Commitment energy must be more heart mind driven, and is stubbornness more mind driven? It's more program.
Well, commitment gets you growth. You create growth with commitment, but with stubbornness, you don't create growth.
Maybe with commitment, you are on the journey, whatever that journey is, however it expresses itself, however it needs to change, even if it's not actually practicing for a certain time. Whereas stubbornness would be more of, this is exactly how my practice is going to go. And if it doesn't go this way, then it's not practice.
Okay. With that
It's
said,
control.
everyone, we are going to be dropping the YouTube algorithm. As you all know, we've been divorcing from YouTube because of some of the things that it's been doing, like the 16,500 words you cannot say. And what this means is we are going to be moving this show to Rumble. Our first hour is on Rumble and YouTube, and our second hour is on Rumble exclusive. So for all of you that are on the YouTube channel, there is a link inside the description that will take you direct to this Rumble show. We are saying goodbye, farewell to the evil YouTube as we move over to Rumble, and we are allowed to talk openly with our own frequency without the limitation that YouTube imposes upon us. So long, farewell to YouTube.
Bon voyage, bitch.
Exactly, biatch.
And it's very easy to get an account on Rumble as well and download the app. It literally takes a minute.
It's
All right,
about
everyone.
Commenting Karens and Kens.